So Tulenki and Medical essentially opening up the conversation this morning. We've picked up some conversation on social media, really important on rape and sexual abuse, and we thought, hey, it's been so topical. A lot of people have shared their experiences and lots of questions that some persons have asked. Why don't we, have a full-blown conversation on the back of this? So Kojo and myself, we're here. We'll share some experiences with all of you. We'll activate the phone lines as well. But we've also been joined by a man who is knowledgeable in the law. He will tell us the perspective from the law. He's into child's rights as well, but he's the head of Department Public Law at GIMPA. Mr. Edmund Foli is here. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, all of you.
Yeah.
Good morning. Yes, good morning.
Kojo is going to talk about the criminal law aspect of you, I know.
No, actually, what you don't know is that this distinguished law lecturer sitting before you with his felt jacket and gold pen and law books, proper law lecturer, is my senior from Ogasco. He was 1 year ahead of me.
The only college.
Oh, wow.
Yes, the only beach resort college.
Yes. This is too close, so I'll stay back.
Yes. So I was pleased to hear you calling him sir, because now you have to call me sir as well. Edmund, it's so nice to see you
again.
And thank you for coming. This is an important conversation.
Yeah.
We've seen how social media has picked up these recent stories of accusations of rape.
Yes.
Interestingly, the central one involves a lawyer. The head of the
Ghana
Bar Association was accused on social media of rape. And it is sparking a sort of Me Too movement here in Ghana. And we've recognized that part of the reason why some of these things happen is because perhaps a lot of men don't quite understand the technicalities of rape.
Right.
So maybe we'll start there.
Is it for lack of understanding?
We've had conversations with even some of our colleagues who have suggested that certain situations ought not be referred to as rape.
Right.
Okay. And we want to find out if they are right or not.
Right.
So maybe we'll start from there. Some sort of definition, and then we'll get into.
But before that, Me Too. I mean, are we adding our voices? Is that being heard? Is that loud enough? The Me Too kind of movement on social media.
It is starting, I'll say, gradually, and would encourage it. We need a Me Too movement. We really need a Me Too movement. Now, the word rape, since we went to the college, we studied Latin.
Yes.
So rape rape comes from the Latin word rapere, and its other variant raptus, which simply means to take by force. Yes. That presupposes that rape is really about the sex. I keep telling my students that the class always gets very active and happy because you're discussing sex. But rape is hardly about the sex. It is sex employed as a tool to suppress another person, to take away from another person. So if you look at England, where we essentially take our law from, in English law, the offense of rape was developed to protect virginity. If you talk of virginity, of course, the very core of womanhood and what defines a woman before she got into marriage. Now, criminal law draws a lot of inspiration from ecclesiastical law, which is church law. So think of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's daughter. Thou shalt not commit adultery. From that perspective, when you had church and state being together, then this influenced the law that governed the nation as well. So it was to protect virginity, because it was deemed that a woman would only have sex within the marital context. Yes. Anything outside that, then the man was guilty. And it was also man because you were the only one who had the means to commit rape, which is to have a penis. So this morning we would say a lot of things as they are.
Yes.
Yes. So the offense throughout English law in other countries and in Ghana has retained its core characteristic, which is from man having sexual intercourse with a woman. And the law says that rape simply, if you look at Ghanaian law, and for the benefit of the public, I'll read it, and for all the men, as you were saying, so we hear. It is a very serious offense. In our offenses, rape is what we call a first-degree felony. A first-degree felony means that you can go to prison anything from less than 3 years to life imprisonment. But rape has a specific punishment. It says you go to prison for not less than 5 years and not more than 25 years. Now, the act itself says rape is what? The carnal knowledge of a female of not less than 16 years without her consent. So, first of all, the victim must be female. She must be of not less than 16, so above 16. If she's below 16, is what in Ghanaian law we call defilement. Then it must be without her consent. The Supreme Court of Ghana, and this is where I would want the men in particular to listen. The Supreme Court of Ghana explained in the case of Banusin versus the Republic, they explained what that penetration of a female organ is. I just read just this few lines. The court said, it is the female sex organs called the vulva and the vagina that are normally penetrated into during sexual act, which can qualify to be carnal knowledge under Section 98 and 99 of Act 29. It is noted that it is the vulva that consists of the external genital organ area and includes the clitoris and other vital sensitive nerve receptors. And then they go on to explain what vagina is. Now, it's interesting the Supreme Court is giving such a graphic description, but it is important because this is what led Justice Duchi, that case, to then say the slightest touch of the person's vagina constitutes, the vulva, starting with, that's the external, of course, constitutes rape. So any intrusion of whatever nature with a penis into that area in Ghanaian law is what we call rape.
So it's not just about the penetration.
Well, about the penetration, yes, definition. You don't need to go far. Yes, you do not need to have gone far into the person's vagina. Just even touching the surface of the vagina suffices. Yes, what is often called brushing.
Yes, even brushing can be rape if there is no consent.
Rape. Yes, if there is no consent.
If there is no consent.
If there is no consent.
Now you see, the what's it called? The permutations have been thrown up, and various suggestions about things that ought not to be defined as rape. And again, you talk about how we take our inspiration from British law, which also takes its inspiration from ecclesiastical law. Now, there's a case I was looking at where a man in Britain was convicted of rape. In this case, the woman gave consent for sexual intercourse. And during the sexual intercourse, the woman asked the man not to ejaculate inside her. The man agreed not to, but he ended up ejaculating inside her anyway. She took him to court and he was convicted of rape.
Yes.
Now, that comes to the question of consent and what consent means.
Right.
Can you help us?
Yes. The consent bit is quite a difficult one, and it's important if your country's laws explain. So in England in 2003, there was a major reform in their laws on sex. And in that reform, first of all, they expanded a bit of what rape was. It was no longer vagina, but anus, mouth, and any other bodily orifice, whether nostril or whatever. But it had to be penis. And then they also changed the man bit to person. We have not done that expansion yet. But also on the question of consent, in the United Kingdom, what they said was it was not only the direct consent being given to you, but also a belief. You needed to have a reasonable belief that the person was consenting. So if at any point in time, any indication was given to you that the other party is not interested in what is happening, you then have to stop. It was deemed that consent was withdrawn. So consent is both what is said and the impression given you. So for this woman, yes, she clearly said, do not ejaculate. And the sexual act is seen as one. In law, it is seen as one composite act. So if at any point in time a part of it is broken, it no longer works. It's on that basis he was convicted, because there was a clear agreement as to how the sex should be done. And then when he breached that, and of course, they had proceeded on that basis. When she found out this was not the case, he had to face the law. There's another one. This one got the services of a prostitute, commercial sex worker, as they are called. They agreed on a fee, and when they finished, he didn't pay. He was also convicted because he had procured the consent by deceit, made her believe that he would pay. Afterwards, he did not pay for the service. He was deemed to be rape.
So even though he had the consent, because he procured it by deceit, it was no longer consent.
Exactly, yes. And that also in Ghanaian law exists. We have procurement of consent by deceit, which will be criminal, to procure someone's consent. How about a sleeping victim? The law used to be that a person who was sleeping was presumed not to consent in all circumstances or in a certain state of unconsciousness. That position has also changed.
In Ghana?
Well, in England, we haven't had, I'm sure if we have a case in Ghana, the prosecution or the defense might raise it so that we get our courts speaking to it. But now it is possible for you to have sex with somebody who is sleeping but who actually consents.
How?
Yes.
What would constitute consent?
Consent in that circumstance. Yes. Previously, I said any sleeping person then does not consent. But if she was sleeping and you went ahead and she didn't make any moves and seemed to enjoy the act, yes, you could plead that that as a defense, that she consented. So the court would look at the evidence, yes.
That's interesting.
On its merits.
And you know, based on that, perhaps this is the time to watch that clip that we saw yesterday. Mama B and I watched a clip on social media where, in a very British way, some people try to explain the concept of consent.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at it.
Yeah, we'll bounce it off you when we come back.
Yeah.
Instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know, if you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, you know, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you're entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say, "No thank you," then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea, don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please, that's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind, and you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they are unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea, and they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea, and they said yes, but in the time it took you to boil the kettle or brew the tea and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down, make sure the unconscious person is safe, and this is the important part again, don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they are safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, "But you wanted tea last week," or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you are able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea.
Yeah, interesting.
If you're still struggling with consent,
Yes.
Don't
any
make,
of you like
don't
a
make
cup
me,
of tea?
No, not now. Not now. I could change my mind any minute. But what do you think about this analogy? You know?
Because I've seen it before, and from a public education point of view, I think it's fantastic. It brings the message closer home. So simple. The person can ask for tea. The tea comes, I'm no longer interested. Don't proceed. You can offer tea. They agree. Somewhere in the middle, drinking the cup, they say no. Stop. Stop is stop. Any sexual act, and if you go a bit into more or less the philosophy of sex and all, and what the female anatomy is, women are receptacles, as it were. So she's taking somebody into her person, into her core. So I also brought the Constitution along. The Constitution talks about human dignity. When you have more or less taken that consent by force, or when it has been withdrawn, thereafter, whatever is happening, it's a person's decision. Let's understand that it's control over his or her body. Yes, we've been talking about woman, because in our law, rape deals with women. But men equally can be sexually abused. And let me just add that a woman in Ghana can actually be an accessory to rape. Yes, and she'll be charged with abetting a rape. So if a man raped another woman, but he was goaded on to do that because of the intervention of another woman who was his accomplice, she could be charged equally as as an abettor of the rape, as it were. So stop means stop.
Yeah. Clara Berry Kasati, a colleague of yours, put up a post, and lots of questions came up. And she was explaining that if I came naked before you, dancing around you, I came to your room, you still didn't have a right to touch me. The questions that came up, somebody said, but you presented yourself. So you presented yourself to me in my room. You know, it's more like you're tempting me. What did you expect? Can you address that kind of scenario?
I like the way you say the word tempt. There's no temptation greater than you can resist. But it's quite a tricky one. Is that also an indication of your intention to have sex? Definitely. I mean, let's get real. The law also has to work within a very real human context. Would we bring that into the evidence? If I were defense counsel, I'll throw that into the evidence. I would start my evidential discussion from there, as the person coming and showing that he or she wanted to have sex. From the prosecution end, you would say no. I mean, the sex should start from when we are actually going to have penetrative sex, which is what the law often looks at. And if you look at the antecedents of rape, how the courts dealt with it from the earliest days in England, it mostly, of course, started with you ripping clothes off or something, taking by force. So it would always start measuring from the time you are about to get in. But indeed, I agree, sexuality and how human beings play it has changed over time. So we are seeing very many different variants of sexual behavior.
But if we're talking of a matter of law, then surely, since the law has already established that, look, consent can be withdrawn even in the middle of a sexual act. If a woman halfway through, she says, you know what, I don't want to continue, and you continue, you're raping her from that point onwards. So if we've established that, then does it matter whether this woman comes into your room naked, dances around, lies down with, backside up in the air, whatever she does? If at any point she says no, and you proceed, you're a rapist.
You're a rapist. But to also that address probably this issue with this post more surgically, the mere dancing, yes, naked. I think I agree with Clara. Merely coming to your room naked to dance doesn't mean they want penetrative sex. See, that's what the law is hitting at, the penetrative bit. You may go ahead to touch the person, fondle. That will take you into indecent assault. If because there's also consent issues there, yes. So merely coming to dance naked in my room does not mean, I mean, technically, if I were the prosecutor, I would say it doesn't mean that I want to have penetrative sex.
So why did you come to my room?
You came to dance and show me your nakedness. For all, if you go to a strip club and it's pole dancing, sometimes they get naked, but it's not for you to have sex with them. There. In fact, most of those girls don't have sex. If you want
or
to
maybe
proceed,
her intention is to arouse you and then turn you down. That's what she wants to do.
Yes, which is not a crime.
Yeah.
So if you follow up, and it's interesting, it's over 100 comments and still counting. And there are people who said, I mean, man is a man. You can't, and you should know that you can't just come and do that around me and not expect me to go far.
But is that fair? I mean, is that really what a man is?
Well, you tell me. You are the man.
You see, okay, so
I know what a man is.
I know. I mean, let's have a conversation about this, okay? I'm a man, and to be perfectly honest, the only thing that I consider to be enjoyable about sex is the desire of your partner. That is what makes it enjoyable. If that doesn't exist, it's not intercourse. It's one person exerting their will over the other, and I don't quite get how that can give pleasure. Someone is saying, no, I don't want this. You are forcing it to happen, and you are pleased with it. I don't quite, that maybe that's my personal view. But I don't think it's a definition of all men. That's all of us, if you tempt us, we will take by force. You know,
I mean, Joseph ran away. Yeah. But physiologically, that's okay. So it makes a bit of medicine and law. Any woman's vagina naturally has some moisture. There's been urine coming, other vaginal fluids. So pass your fingers there, you might find some moisture. But when a woman is ready to have sex, her body naturally gives her some fluids that make her enjoy the sex and lubricate the place. So we found out in with some victims, and I've worked with rape victims, interviewed some of them, when that shock, that attack, or that point where she's no longer interested, it's like the body begins to freeze. And the lubrication you need for sexual intercourse is not there. But to the man, any moisture you find there, you think is fine. But what happens is you're actually physically hurting the person. So there's physical pain with that. If you force your way into her, you might actually feel some moisture there, but it is not the moisture for sex. And that's why when she says stop, some men say no, but it's happening. Her body is shutting down, as it were, freezing from that experience. So you don't continue. That's the physiological effect. Then the emotional, of course, it's like now you are overpowering me. Yes, you're overpowering me, and it's your will against mine, and pushing me to do this when I don't want to. Yes.
Should we talk about the Me Too movement? You know,
we have to link that to the statute of limitation.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, you know, the Me Too movement has taken the world by storm. Over the past 2 years or so, many women who in the past would never have had the courage to come out and, you know, accuse those who molested or harassed or abused or raped them. Today they are finding that courage in the company of others. You know. And there was this recent example of somebody naming the person they allege raped them. Now, and I'm talking about the lawyer.
As in the Ghana case, the one that's released as our country.
Yeah. Now, it occurred to me, a thought that I had at the beginning when the Me Too movement began, that I was so happy women now feel able to do this, feel strong and brave. But I also ask myself, is there the capacity to abuse this movement? Is it possible for somebody to falsely accuse someone of rape? But I start to see that these days, with the strength that women are getting naturally from this movement, the minute you ask that question, you are almost seen as pro-abuse or pro-rape. But from the legal perspective, if somebody is named on social media as having committed a crime, when that person has not been found guilty of that crime in court, is there some legal mischief occurring there? Is there something illegal about naming someone in that way?
Yes, and yeah, definitely accusing somebody falsely when of a crime when they have not committed the crime is wrong. Unfortunately, we can only prove that through the legal process. So that false allegation would have to come through the court system. The person will painfully have to go through perhaps police investigation. If it gets to court, go through the whole court process only to be exonerated in the end. The person would have a remedy. This is the one who has been accused. You could go for what we call a malicious prosecution and get some damages from the person. But let's be careful, even with social media. You would recall last year in India, some people were killed by mobs on allegations of having raped others when it was not true. And so the control of social media and how we use information there is critical, and people will have to be discerning themselves. But as to victims coming back so many years after, Brett Kavanaugh and all the like, it is a very real prospect. In criminal law, we have something called prescription. There is no statute of limitation to crime. You can, in Ghana, we don't have any limitation. So years after, you can come back. Evidential issues, right. If it happened immediately, the police could get semen, you take swabs and all of that. See physical, damage to the organs and all, you could. But that notwithstanding, you see, sexual offenses are some of the most difficult offenses to prove. And the critical element is the consent. So we would take what we call corroboration. We would get evidence from other people. She may have told a friend. She may have exhibited certain behavior in the past which showed that something had happened to her. She was withdrawn. And rape victims always go through that process. It's not easy. Even if she kept quiet and put up a brave face, she would exhibit something that would tell you something has gone wrong. So years after, if it comes to trial, then we would look at these cases. You have to prove the physical bit, but if you are able to muster the evidence to show the lack of consent, you are halfway through the door. Chances are you'd get it. So this current movement where women have been emboldened, and previously it was because it was felt that it's gone. You've washed your clothes, the semen is gone, it's done. So come back years later, there's no evidence against me. But we've seen from the United States, from the United Kingdom, that cases have been dealt with by the courts years after the people had done it and they've been convicted. I think that's the strongest, you could say, motivation for the Me Too movement. Let it come. But to the victims, let me assure you, it's going to be a difficult and painful fight. First of all, recalling the incident. The defense of the perpetrator, that I didn't do this, and you would see them strutting in public. They'll hit you in the face. You'll be called one who is accusing a big man or even a small man falsely. So it's going to be a long drawn out. Yes,
come back.
Your past
they can dig things
back.
on you
They
as
would.
well.
They would dig things up. You're not a virgin. You're already sleeping around. So if you are in the Me Too movement and you're going to take this on, be psychologically prepared. It's going to be a long, painful fight. And be ready to accept that the legal process is not perfect. He may walk free. He may walk free, depending on the strength of his case. This happened many years ago. There's no guarantee that you saying it, you need a good lawyer. If he has a good lawyer, he would walk free.
Can I ask, is consent, the withdrawal of consent, can it be linked to the relationship after as well? So if I withdraw consent, but I am nice to you immediately after.
Oh, then you come back and argue that so there was no withdrawal after all.
If you were angry, if you didn't like it, how come you related nicely to me?
Nicely to me. It's no guarantee.
Okay.
It's no guarantee. And I like that you bring it up because it will take you into the marital context. Take married couple. And in Ghanaian law, let me explain why we say there's marital rape. We used to have a section in the Criminal Offences Act on, you could say, defenses to harm. So if you caused harm to somebody, there were certain defenses, like a police officer arresting you and you not agreeing to go peacefully. They could use force against you. So we have some instances in which you can use force, and you have section 42, use of force in cases of consent. So we consent to medical treatment. If you have a woman in labor, she consents to episiotomy, having that little cut you do so the baby can come out. This is causing harm to you. So we had a provision, section G, which said that a person could revoke consent which the person had given, and if I withdraw that consent, I can consent to you hitting me. If I withdraw it and you continue hitting me, it's wrong. There was a section attached to this which said that, except that the consent given by a husband or wife at marriage for the purposes of marriage cannot be revoked until the parties are divorced or separated by a judgment or decree of a competent court.
Wow.
This presupposed, hidden in here, was a certain understanding that you can have one offering to have sex and the other not agreeing, and some force may be used. You see, it's hidden in there somewhere. So that for husbands and wives, if you agreed in marriage, it means, oh, if I'm not in the mood today, my dear, let's do it force. We'll still talk. I'll finish and say sorry. And you can't say anything. This was repealed. So it's out now. So the point is the terrain is clean. If you do it, can a wife now in Ghana take her husband to court? And that's why some of us argue that with the removal of the exception, it should be possible.
But can you do it and come back and say we're still married?
Yes.
Well,
of course.
So you could steal from me and we'll still be married, right?
Chances are your marriage will go. I mean, if it gets there, let's in the society, you take your husband to court for having had sex with you. Surely there will be a breakdown in the relationship. But I dare say, I'm very sure there are wives in Ghana who have gone through this, even just last night, whose husbands have said sorry this morning, and they're sort of hanging in there. Many considerations will come in, children, family, and all that. So they're keeping quiet, but it is wrong.
But you see, that's interesting. It leads us to another aspect of rape and abuse, where there isn't physical resistance.
Yes.
Okay, but still, the consent is sort of derived under duress.
Yes.
So he's my boss, and he's touching me, and and I'm afraid that if I speak up, I'll lose my job. Yes. Or this is a police officer who has arrested my husband, and I'm afraid that if I resist what he's doing, that sort of thing, where there's a power dynamic.
Definitely.
So you will not physically fight him, you will not say the word no, and the sexual act may go on, but it is still rape.
Yes.
And by the way, before you answer my question on that, look, if you have questions of your own, why don't you call us? Let's talk about it. We'll put the phone number up.
0302-211-6912. 0302-211-6912. You can give us a call.
Obaya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So call us if you have any questions. But yes,
you're right. And before we got on the show, I was telling you about the famous Olugboja case in the United Kingdom, where this man beat up two girls he had offered to give a lift from a party and was raping one. And then he had invited his friend over. So his friend walked in and to go to the other girl. When she saw his friend, she just submitted. from hearing the beatings of her friend and the beatings she herself had taken earlier on. She just submitted. And the courts in England said, well, every consent would involve a submission, but not every submission means consent. And so, Kojo, what you're saying is very real. Power relations, boss, secretary, superior, subordinate, in security agencies in the United States. Rape in the U.S. military has been a problem. And it's like, you report, nothing will happen to me. Lecturer, student, you put people in a situation
for
where...
grades?
Yes, for grades. In Cameroon, they call them STDs, sexually transmitted degrees. So, all those power relations, the person would cave in, I need a job, would agree, but that submission doesn't mean consent. So if you're doing that, yes, in the Me Too movement, you compile all, one day come out, and I think we've seen the cases with some of the high-profile celebrities, and you will definitely go down.
Well, there's another aspect of the conversation which is defense that we will talk about, but let's begin to speak to our viewers. Raj Benjamin is in Hohoy. He joins us. Raj, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, Raj, I hope you're well. Kindly speak up a bit for us.
Okay. I say good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes. I'm a teacher, by the way. I once called JoyNews line requesting that I need one of their correspondents here. I teach in a school whereby most of my students, they complain of rape at home. So I wanted us to carry this, but I tried calling, but no one responded, please.
Okay. So just Raj...
a lot of them, a lot of girls, 15 years, 15 years.
Raj, I don't want the line to go bad or go off, so just hold on and speak to a call. He's our producer. He'll take your details, and then we'll get back to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, CCC McCoy is calling us. CCC McCoy, what a wonderful name. Good morning, and how is Winneba today?
Oh, Winneba is doing well.
Wonderful. So talk to us. What's your question?
My question is based on, it's on harassment. As our boss was talking about, maybe he spoke of somebody will strip himself naked, come and dance in front of the man. Can we analyze or maybe speak about harassment here? Or can the person be accused of harassment here?
Okay.
And if the person can, what is also the punishment? And how will it also link up to the man responding to the harassment? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps we should take another call, and then you can answer a few questions together. Or no, we don't have any other calls now. So, yeah.
Raj, first to Raj, you can also go to the DOVSU officer. I know the DOVSU officer. She's quite a very feisty and fired up police officer. She will attend to you. McCoy, yes, it constitutes harassment. Under the Domestic Violence Act, we have sexual harassment. The person comes and does that kind of exposure to you when you don't want it. Yes, you can make a case for sexual harassment. The only challenge with the DV Act is it talks about a domestic relationship. The people must be in some kind of relationship. So that's one small lacuna in our law we need to fix. Because if you are not, if it's a total stranger, then you are not on solid ground. But if it is somebody close to you who is within your circles and your household, you could make a case under the DV Act.
How about if you're a student in university and this is your hostel mate or whatever, next door neighbor?
Yes, that friendship, you could draw it in. I think we can do some judicial ingenuity and draw it in. Yes, it will constitute harassment.
Right. Another call?
Yeah, Papa Kwame is in Kumasi. Good morning, Papa Kwame.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Mama.
Thank you for calling us. Please go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so I want to ask Edmund that when you look at our laws in Ghana, it means that a man cannot necessarily complain that he has been raped. So it generally means that a man cannot be raped under the law. But there are some men that perhaps go through some form of rape from women,
Yeah.
what would be the remedy for those men? And also, since you spoke about harassment, there are times where women clearly harass men. Do they have any remedy in the laws that can give those men some guarantee that in the event that a woman does something to me, I can reach out to the law court?
Right. Yes, I'll deal with that.
Thank
quickly.
you, Papa Kwame. Is there
Yes,
a personal experience there?
Yes, I have a personal experience with harassment.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
with
there any
sexual
part of it you can
harassment.
share with us?
Would you mind?
Okay, so I have this friend, and we were just having a very nice conversation. And before I realized, she's already on me trying to touch and all of those things. I actually didn't want to have any relationship with her. And personally, I felt offended because I have not asked for it. I've not asked for a kiss. Why give me a kiss?
Okay.
And that's, I don't want to go into the details.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
all right.
Yeah, we appreciate the bit that you've shared with
Yes.
us. I think we get the picture. Papa Kwame from Kumasi,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Papa Kwame, for men, you have some relief. So indecent assault in section 103.
Indecent assault.
Indecent assault. And a person who indecently assaults another commits a misdemeanor. That's the only problem. So for the men, it's a misdemeanor. That means the maximum that woman will get is 3 years in prison, but a minimum of 6 months. What is indecent assault? It is where somebody forcibly makes sexual bodily contact. So in his case, the case, or if she came gyrating her buttocks on you, yes, that will constitute sexual bodily contact, which is either the person touching you with her sex organs or any other, so breasts, or she uses her hands to touch your sexual organs. Yes. Apart from that, the law also says the person sexually violates your body in a way. So we've had cases where, for instance, a man shaved the pubic hair of his wife for ritual purposes. Yes. Then it was held to be not a crime, but in today's world it would. Somebody who forced another person to masturbate into a condom without touching the person was held to be indecent assault.
Wow. Now, you know, the question he asks about, sorry, we have another caller.
Yeah.
Let's take another call and then
Yeah.
I'll do that follow-up. So it's Regina Nyan from Takrady. Regina, good morning.
Good morning. I'm happy that I'm on the line.
Excellent. We're happy you've called. What's your question?
Yeah. Please, in the year 2015, I was a student at Foli, and my life was threatened by my hostel mate. Yeah, in the year 2015, I was at a hostel in the Takrady Police, and my life was threatened by my hostel mate. So I ran to the police station in the evening. So after lodging the complaint, one of the police officers told me that because my life was threatened, he will rent a guest house for me to sleep. So the next day I'll go to my hostel. So after I went to the guest house, I was there, and in the midnight when he closed from his shift, he came to the guest house, forced me, and forcibly had sex with me.
Wow.
And since then, anytime I see a policeman, my heart will jump, and I hate to see a policeman. I don't like them. And I always feel like falling and like seeing the person, and like, I don't know. Though I'm married and now I have one child, but I still have the pain in my heart.
I'm sorry you went through that, Regina. Did you report it? Did you make a police report at the time, or even since then?
No, I didn't, because I was having a serious boyfriend, so I didn't make any complaint.
Wow.
Maybe we can take your details, Regina.
Yeah.
Because we can, connect you to a few people who can. I mean, you can tell us a few things. But you see, this is, I can imagine why she may not be able to go back to the police station, because remember that this officer is the one who took her initial complaints.
That's right.
So who else do you report to?
And what would that person do to you?
And I was going to box that with something that Papa Kwame said. If a man goes to a police station to report an incident like that, wouldn't they laugh at him? I mean, if a woman, because I've heard some people say that, oh, if you are lucky and the woman presented herself, so what's your problem?
Yes. Unfortunately, our society thinks that way. When I was in the University of Ghana, there was a rumor that a young student, male, had been raped by 4 female students, and he was a laughing stock. So definitely in our society, you would get the man, you know, being laughed at and told, man, you are lucky. But if it happens, let's report. Things are changing. I know a few very good officers in the domestic violence, and it will start from there. You would often be referred to Dovsu. For Regina, please report. I think you're still suffering the trauma that you experienced at his hands. And for a question of safety, I would urge our courts, and if there are any lawyers listening, in South Africa, there was a similar situation to what Regina suffered. A young girl went out with her boyfriend, they had a lover's quarrel, and she went to a gas station to request to use their phone to call her mother. They were refusing when a police officer walked in and said, what is the matter? And when he was told the incident, he says, no, I'll take you home. She trusted him because he was an officer. Took her into the squad car. There were 2 other officers. They drove her off the N1 to Johannesburg and took turns to rape her and left her there. The officers were jailed for life. She not only stopped there, she sued the Republic of South Africa for what in law we call vicarious liability, which is for the state to be held liable for the conduct of the police officers. And I was working at the Constitutional Court. I was privileged to have worked on that case, researched on it. The argument that was made by the state was, we don't hire police officers to rape women, so we cannot be held responsible for what we did not instruct them to do. The Constitutional Court reasoned things out this way. When policeman 1 was on top raping her, 2 and 3 standing by had a responsibility to stop a crime from being committed. So the court said at all times the state was on duty. So Regina, do not stop. Like I said, it might be a very painful experience. Now there's no physical evidence of the rape, but definitely there's psychological evidence showing that you've suffered.
Let me ask a typical Ghanaian question. We know how policemen are protective of each other. How far can she go in reality, going back to a police station, because that's your first point of call?
Police Professional Standards Bureau.
PIPS.
Yes, PIPS will be a starting point. The good thing about reporting is that it gives us in the advocacy field something to hold on to. So if she makes a report, we can pursue it. I mean, media, lawyers. I happen to do some work with Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. They've been looking into this, and we would sustain the pressure on the police.
Let me add family to the law.
Yes.
This would have implications. If let's just use Regina's case, because she's married, she has a child, she lives in the community, she has a job. How is she protected from all the fallout, the effects?
Yes, expect some people to look at you with certain eyes, but we need, as a community, Ghanaians, to understand that rape is not just the sex. It's not somebody being quote unquote bad and you like having sex. No, it's about the disempowering of the person. So I would expect for Regina, for instance, now that she's been bold to even share this, she said, I'm happy to get onto this line. She needs the support of her husband. If her children are old enough to understand, somehow the children also need some counseling to explain what mommy has been through and what the next few weeks or months to years would look like for mommy getting help. Even if, Regina, you will not report, when you see a policeman, you are scared, you are traumatized. We need to heal you from that trauma alone. Yes. So definitely the society around, we should not see rape as the sex. I think we still have a certain patriarchal and patronizing view of sex. In South Sudan, when a woman is raped, it is considered normal. In certain parts of South Sudan, it is considered as the lot of a woman to be raped. I worked in South Sudan. It's like, sorry, it happened, sister, but women get
But
raped.
it happens.
It happens, yes. It should not be that. We have a bit of it. Sad to say, in 2003, 2003 years, Medina Police Station, I had gone there as a lawyer on another case. A rape case had been reported, and sadly, just a regular cop standing by the door made a statement like, but if a man has slept with you, what's the big deal? I was saddened. And I took him and I said, you can't say that. But I don't blame him. You see, he's coming from a certain patronizing society that thinks that it's no big deal. You're even lucky for a man to have had sex with you. So we need to change that. In this narrative, we need to change that thinking.
What Regina said that really struck me when I asked her whether she had reported it at any point, and she said, well, at the time she didn't report it because she had a boyfriend. Yes. Now I wonder whether men who are watching us now start to realize how, look, even if you've never abused a woman before, you've never raped a woman before, you can sometimes be part of the problem. Yes. She had a boyfriend, and she thought that was reason enough to keep this shameful act committed against her to herself, because she felt that her relationship was in somehow in danger, in jeopardy, if that information came out. Boyfriend was not a rapist. I'm sure he wasn't, you know, but somehow, just because of however it is that she perceives him, she felt prevented from reporting this crime. And that is how sometimes we are all passively part of the problem, you know. And it's a very important detail that she mentioned. By the way, Regina, you are actually a hero. You are very brave to have even made this phone call and spoken to the world about what happened to you. It's clear that you've taken that first step. That trauma can be cured or healed, like Edmund
could you,
said.
While you talk about the society and the importance of us getting on board, rape is hardly done in public. It's always insidious, in private. So when it comes to the evidence, it's very hard for the victim to show, because you don't have any witness. Hardly would you have witnesses. And that's why the community around, family, friends, need to help with the corroboration. Because in court, we do take evidence of witnesses. And in rape, an exception is made because you can take hearsay evidence, which is that I was told. So the more people we're able to assemble around the victim who can come to court and testify that, yes, we know this person, we observed her, this happened, she told ABC. All of us should come on. It helps strengthen the victim's case.
But how far can a case of you against me, it's just the two of us, how far can a case like that go? I am saying you did that, and then you are saying you did not.
Very tough. Very tough. You recall the KKD case? Yes. And perhaps sadly that case fell because of lack of evidence. And it was one's word against the other. Played through the rules of evidence, it was difficult to establish that there had been lack of consent. So when it comes to defenses, the quote-unquote rapist defense is to say that you consented. If he's able to establish that you consented or that you did not withdraw it at any point in time, he wins at the end of the day. Yes.
Wow.
Well, we have to wrap up, but you've been monitoring and you've dealt with some cases.
Yes.
We want to leave the last say to you. How do you want to end this conversation?
Gentlemen, rape is not about the sex. It's hurting, it's disempowering, it's hitting someone at the core of their humanity. So please, if you want to have sex, just negotiate nicely. You want a cup of tea? I don't want tea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Kojo, you can keep your tea.
I wasn't offering, Mama.
He did.
I wasn't offering.
He asked at the beginning of the conversation, so I'm telling him.
I'm his lawyer.
I was asking if the video made anybody want some tea.
Yes.
Not necessarily from me.
I'll defend him any day.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is where we wrap up. Rather very quickly. Stay with us. We've got more conversations coming up.